Hi there, my name is Jude and you can call me Nirvana. And for the last couple of years, I've been working for startups and also partnering with agencies to build AI automation and AI agent system into their clients' businesses. Lately, I decided to start a 60-day series where we talk about AI and I break every single thing down to 5 layers. Where we started from prompt engineering, AI automation, we handled MCPs, universal connectors, that's HTTP, we handled APIs and various others. Then to AI agents, which we started building as of late. So this is day 42 of the entire 60-day series, meaning we have 18 days left. And today we're going to talk about the first level of agents. And the thing you need to know about an agent is that an agent can actually handle situations it has never planned for. What I mean is, an agent can undo a situation you did not write a step for inside the knowledge base that you gave it. How does this happen? So you can have one loop running quietly in the background, and once you see it, the whole thing stops feeling like, this weird stuff. And you start understanding at that moment that this is something that you can build, which we are going to handle this tomorrow. We're going to be building something big tomorrow. And everything we're going to be building is for free. You don't have to pay for any platform, any service at all. But today, I want us to open everything. I want us to explain what happens when a loop in an agent happens. I want us to explain what happens when a loop occurs. Tomorrow you'll be building your first real agent inside Make, and when you run it, Make is going to show you a reasoning panel where we're going to see here. I showed you yesterday how this looks like. So you are going to see a reasoning panel and you literally watch the agents think step by step in real time. So here's the thing I want you to put in your mind. If you don't understand, so here's the thing you need to know, and that is, if you don't understand how a loop works, when you start seeing, this panel, it start looking like, something you don't know what is happening. So one thing I need you to do first is I want you to see this as you reading a story. You're going to see the agent make a decision and you're going to know exactly why the agent made that decision. So you're going to spend 20 minutes with me here, and I believe every single one of them is going to pay off. And I believe every single minute is going to pay off. And every single day after this, you're going to understand why we actually needed this. So the way this works is I'm going to show you this is the resource guide for today. And you can see this. So basically, I want you to forget the code. I want you to forget, the entire scenario for a second. I want you to think about hiring someone, for example. If you bring a new hire, the first day, I believe you don't hand them a 40-step script, for every possible situation that happens in your business. What I mean is this. I use this to explain. So, in this case, what you give this new hire that you have is a goal. You give the person a goal. An example is telling the person, okay, undo incoming leads. Then you show them what they are allowed to touch. That means the things they have access to. In this case, it could be your CRM. It could be the email. It could be probably a pricing sheet or something that they will be able to interact with. Then this is the point where you now trust them to follow through the process. You trust them to figure out the steps by themselves, because obviously you've given them the tools that they need to use, right? So that thing exactly, what you do there, you setting up a new person, is literally how you are going to make an agent. So exactly that way, you're going to give them a goal, and you're going to give basically the goal for an agent are instructions. The goal for an agent are instructions. The system you give them access to as well are the agent tools. I have one that I can use to give a better example here. Now you see that I've been mentioning this over and over. On make.com we have what? This, that's the knowledge. You are giving them the goal right inside the knowledge. That is where you give them every single thing about your business and also what you are trying to achieve, right? Then the next thing you give them is the tools, which I just mentioned here. And the next thing is you are going to let them make judgments. That's based on the knowledge you just gave it. You are going to let it make judgments to decide on what to do next. That is the reasoning loop. That is what happens there. So a good hire does not need, a script. You don't need to give them something, okay, this is something you need to follow every. No. You need to just give them a goal. You need to give them the right access. These are the tools you can use, and this is what you are going to achieve. Since I hired you for this particular post, I believe that you know and you understand what to do in this case. So I'll leave it to you. I'll let you take what. Since I've given you every single thing you need, I want you to take charge of every single thing. And this same thing applies when you are building an agent. For example, you are giving this machine those three things. That's the goal. You are giving it the tools, and you're also giving it a way to reason it. That's a loop. Every single one of this that we do is in stages. Actually, this loop is in stages, and that's what I have here. These stages, I want us to work on this properly. There are 5 moments that happen here. Every time an agent runs, the first thing it does is it's going to analyze the goal. What it's doing here is you have to hand it this up front. An example is telling it, oh, I want you to qualify the lead and reply appropriately, right? And the second one that you give it is, the idea is this goal never changes if every time it does the run. So anytime you start this agent all over again, it has the same goal in mind, and it's going to what? It's going to ensure that it achieves that same goal. That's the thing it does every single time. So if there's anything else that you want to do, you know that what? You have to hand that to someone else, or in this case, you have to hand that to a different agent, because you want this one to what? Focus on just one thing. Now, the number 2 of what we see here is the thinking. The agent has to look at this goal and the situation, and then it asks itself one question: what should I do next? With this goal, what should I do next? So it is not taking the whole plan. It's just thinking about what move is next. What's the next move? So this is the part people actually miss most of the time, because they believe if they have given their agents a goal, it doesn't need to plan. And the idea is it does need to plan, but it needs to plan only for one thing. That is one move. So it is not planning for all the 10 steps ahead. No, it's planning for just one thing. What exactly am I trying to achieve right now? Then it does that thing. It figures out step 1, and it then thinks again. What it's doing now is it's thinking over again. What should I do? Then since I've done this, it's going to now act. This is the loop that happens right inside. It just keeps what? Thinking. Since I've done this, should I do this next? Which tool should I call on next? That is what this is doing. So now the 3 is that what? It's going to act. It's going to pick a tool and it's going to use it, right? An example is it's checking the email, or probably it's trying to read the CRM, if this is the case, or it's sending a message. It's going to what? Pick that tool and perform one action. Then once it performs the action, it's going to stop and look through all these things. The number 4 around this is that it has to observe. It needs to observe, because it needs to observe what the tool is giving it. So since it has performed the first action, which is calling the tool, it's going to observe if that tool have given it what is going to satisfy the goal in the first place. So an example is, if what we are looking for is the email address of someone, or we're trying to confirm if the email address of a particular client is currently in our CRM, it's going to give us a response back from the tool which says like email is valid, for example, or this company has 200 staffs. If that's the result that you're looking for, then the agent reads that result from the tool and is going to take that new information and what is going to change it to what it does next. So the idea around this is that it's going to make a decision, and that is going to be the number 5. It decides, is it done? Am I done with what I'm trying to achieve? Am I done with this goal, or do I have to try again? Should I run this again? The thing is, if the goals are met, it's going to stop and it's going to give you the answer. But if the goals are not met, it's going to go through the loop again. So it's going to loop back to the thinking with everything it has just learned. It's going to take everything and look, okay, what I did just now, I was unable to get the solution to it, or I was unable to arrive at a result. So I'm going to go over again with this knowledge that I have now. An example is I couldn't find the email. So it's going to what? Search through, and it's going to what? Reason this, and it's going to what? Go back and see if it's going to try again. So that is what happens. So I want you to understand what this is doing now. So this is basically thinking, is acting, and is observing, then it decides. Then it goes around this whole loop over and over again, until the job is finished. So that circle that you see there is the entire engine that your AI agent is running on. An example of what I have been mentioning here is make.com. Where our make agent runs it. So in this case, if the AI behind it, I use probably if I use Gemini, any LLM, whichever one it is, I can basically walk around this whole thing inside this make AI agent. Now this doesn't just apply to this low level agent. It applies to every single one. It also applies to your middle level AI agent. It applies to your high level agent as well, even to the point of our agentic layer. This same thing happens, the same loop happens, but it is just different for each one of them. It's just different. It happens differently. So here is the part I really want you to hold on to in this video. An agent does not know how to do things. You need to understand that. Most people think AI agents are like, they are pretty smart and, they know how to do all of these things. No. An agent knows that this tool exists. It means that when you ask it a question, or when you tell it to do something, an example from this Telegram, this agent knows that, okay, I'm going to read what this person said and I'm going to look through. Is there a tool that can solve this particular thing? That's what it's trying to figure out. So the goal is what you are giving it from Telegram, and it's going to think through here. It's going to figure out, okay, currently from what I have existing here, this same thing that I'm saying applies to low level, middle level, high level, and even the agentic layer. It's going to think through it and it's going to say what this person is saying. And it's going to say what this person is saying. Does a tool exist that is connected to me right now, or that I have access to, that I can use to achieve this? So you should know that your AI agent is not all powerful, but it knows that it has the right tool. I remember back a few days, I gave an example of a farmer. Now, it is like you are giving a robot farmer, for example. The robot farmer at that moment doesn't know how to plant, doesn't know how to till the ground or to till the soil. But what you tell it to do at that moment is you tell it, I want you to uproot this tree. And at that moment, what it thinks about is uprooting the tree. That's the goal that it has, right? Then the next thing it does is it has to look for tools. Does it have to uproot the tree with its bare hand? Is there a tool for it? Obviously, it's not going to use its bare hands. So it has to look for a tool. If you give it access to, let me say, a cutlass, it is not going to be able to do it. It knows that that tool cannot perform, uprooting a very big tree, right? So what it's going to do at that moment is it's going to look for the right tool, and it gets to decide, is this tool able to handle this thing? Since you've provided this tool in the first place, it believes that you know what is able to do, what that tool is able to do, and if it's going to be able to uproot that particular tree. So let me to just basically explain that, let me say that in a cleaner way. When you give an agent a tool, you are giving it a description. An example is the cutlass I told you. When you give an agent a cutlass, for example, you are basically telling it every description what this cutlass can do. A cutlass can cut down shrubs, can cut down little plants, right? So you've given it the description. So the agent is going to read this description like a menu, and when it hits a moment in the loop where it needs something, it's going to scan that menu again. It's going to see if it matches with the situation, if it matches if it matches with the situation in the description, and if it does, it's going to call that particular tool. So you can basically see that the quality of your agent lives almost entirely on how well you describe that particular tool. So the thing is that if you give it a tool that has vague descriptions, the agent is going to pick the wrong tool. For the example that I've been giving since is the farmer, right? So to uproot a very big tree, it's going to be very hard for it to use a cutlass. If you are giving it a description of like a vague description, it's telling it that this cutlass can, cut down anything, right? Cut down anything. Oh, okay. It's going to if you use that, for example, it won't be able to achieve that, especially if the cutlass is not able to handle a big tree, right? But it attempts it, and that is where everything breaks. So in this case, what you are meant to do with the cutlass is basically saying this cutlass can cut down little shrubs and plants, but not trees, right? So you are being very clear with your description. When you give the agent tools that have sharp description, it's going to pick the right thing every single time. So this is where I can say basically our layer 1, that's prompting, that's prompt engineering, and everything we've handled back then is coming back around, because everything you learned is basically writing clear prompts, and that is basically what you need to use to write good tool descriptions. So you are basically using that same skill, and you need to understand that there is a lot at stake as well, which means that we need to be able to give it tools that have very clear description. But most of the things that we're going to do, and for you to understand better, we're going to handle them tomorrow. I'm going to show you how you write the good descriptions for your make agent, and you also watch it as it chooses which description. So nobody tells you the ugly parts, so I'm going to actually bring that. So this is the part nobody tells you when it comes to agents, and I believe I should tell you. I should tell you what happens. Agents break in specific ways, so knowing how to save them now saves you. This is something nobody mentions when it comes to building AI agents. All you see online is probably how to build this awesome tool, right? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to tell you the ugly truth behind every single thing. Agents actually break in specific ways. So knowing how this breaks will save you hours later on how to correct this. What I have here is basically showing how the tools break. Now there's a point where what? Your loop never ends. Now this happens when you don't have a clear definition of what is done. So in this case, what I mean is, in your goal, you did not give it a clear definition of, okay, once you arrive at this, you can what? You can stop running. So in this case, your agent keeps thinking it has more things to do, so it keeps looping, and I can say if you have tokens right behind this, it's definitely not going to stop, and it's going to exhaust your entire token or your API calls, right? So the fix around this is, if you had a firm if you had a firm stop condition, that what I mean here is, you tell it plainly what a finished result is going to look like. And if you do that, your agent knows that, okay, once it arrives at this particular condition or this situation, it knows when to stop. The other one that happens is when it calls a wrong tool confidently. Now, it's possible for you to have two tools that have fuzzy description. The example is the one I already made of the cutlass, right? So if you give your cutlass something as simple as you can cut down anything with this, the agent is like, okay, I can cut down anything, right? So it's possible for you to have a cutlass and probably a machine saw, right? So probably like a chainsaw. So in this case, if you tell it your cutlass and your chainsaw cut down things, right? In this case, it just it tries to look through which one, and it just picks one. And basically, if the agent grabs the wrong tool, it's going to perform the wrong action. But there's a very simple fix around this, and that is basically what I've been saying, which is you have to give it a very sharp description. Each tool must have a description that says this is what they are meant to do. If you can do this, you've solved that. It's very easy. The third one is they are overwhelming the agents. Now what happens here is that if you add these agents about 15 tools for a job that needs, let me say, just about 4 tools, basically, it's going to hesitate, and it's possible for you to pick a bad one. And when this happens, you need to know that each time that you are working on these tools, you are making calls, API calls every single time, right? When you do this, you are literally wasting your API calls, or you are wasting your tokens as well. So there's a simple fix around this, and that is for you to give it fewer tools. I remember yesterday I was working on connecting my cow.com to my AI agent, and I actually asked it, how many tools should I give you access to? It just mentioned 2 and no more. Now the cow.com on the webhook access, it has, you can have about 10 tools at once, but for that specific problem we're trying to solve there, we didn't need more than just 2. So all I did was I added bookings created and bookings rescheduled. So those were the 2 I just added to it, and those were the things that I needed for that particular situation. So in this case, if what I was added was like adding multiple tools, it will have to first go through each one of them before it makes a decision, and that takes a lot of tokens, and that also wastes the API calls that we're also having from cow.com as well. So every one of these traces back to something that I believe that you can control, and that is the goal that you are writing in the first place. If you are writing a goal that is very clear, that has a stop condition, which means once it's achieved this particular situation, it should just stop. That means you've gotten your answer. And if the tools that you're also handing it in the first place with clear descriptions. It's going to know which one to call at the right time, and also the same way we also describe them. If it's very clear as well, it also knows when to call these two, and it's not going to be overwhelmed with these two. One thing you need to know is that you are not supposed to act like a slave to your agent, right? You are meant to be the one to call the shots. Basically, you are meant to be the one to set the word for the agent. I believe, and the same way I also say it, is that every agent that we build is like a different word on its own. It needs to understand that particular word. That means we are basically giving it access to this understanding. Well, that means we are basically giving it access to this knowledge. We are giving it tools, that's things it can use to build in its own word, and we are also letting it understand that it doesn't need more than this particular set of tools, right? And it can respond back to us if it needs any help or if it's done achieving that particular thing. If not, it should keep what? Tilling the ground or something. So now, to show you what you can control in this entire thing, now to show you what you can actually control in this entire thing, when you build an agent, you need to, here's where you earned when you build an agent, you need to write the goals. You need to write clear goals. You need to, because basically I can say with clear goals, you have an agent that is focused on just one particular thing. It wants to achieve one particular thing, right? You need to choose these tools. You need to choose the right tools, because when you give it the right tools, you basically have an agent that is capable of doing a lot of things, and you need to ensure you describe each one of them with sharp descriptions. An agent can pick the correct tool even under pressure. That means if it has a lot of things to do, if it has a lot of tasks, probably it has a whole bunch of tasks to do, it knows which exact tool to use. So when you set this, including the stop conditions that I mentioned, it knows when to walk away from your project or from what you said it should do, right? So it's basically having your tools. It's basically having your goal, your tool, your description, and giving it a stop. This is the line your AI agent needs to work on. When you get all these things right, you'll be able to hand this to the agent, and the agent can take the loop until he arrives at this answer, and from there on is going to stop, right? So the whole job that you have now, the entire control that you have, is that you can set your goals, your tools, your description, and you can also set a stop. So setting up all these conditions for the AI agent, it finds by itself each step that it needs to take. So setting up the conditions for this AI agent, it finds the step that it needs to take by itself, right? So that's how an agent thinks. Basically a goal it serves, a menu it has to read, a loop it has to run until the work is done. And once it have all these things together, I believe that whatever you are building is going to come out very nice. So here is a way I can say that you can approach this. So the first one here, for example, you tell your AI, I need to check my email, and you're going to send it to it, right? Now what it does at that moment, the menu I've been mentioning all this while, what it does at that moment is basically checking through the tool menu, and it's going to search for which one matches it. So you can see that the tools that we have here for email, it has 1, 2, 3 tools. It doesn't have too much. If it has about, let me say for example, if you had like 15 of them, it has to search through each one to know which one to call. These things happen in a split second, so you might not think it's taking time, but it's actually taking time. And it's remember, it's taking tokens as well. It's taking these API calls, because it needs to call each one to search to know if this is correct, if this is the right one. It's going to read through the description and it gets to know which one is the right one. But in this case now, you can see validate email. This two that we're adding there basically has a very clear description. Use this to check if email address is real. And that is what we have here. I need to check this email. So you can see this is just basically showing you around the fact that if you can prompt your agents very well, you'll be able to you'll be able to arrive at a result that you can actually expect by yourself. So unlike today, I believe that tomorrow we are going to stop talking and doing all this, and we're going to start building. So you are going to build your first real agent inside make.com, and you can also do it on the free plan, right? And I believe that once you see how everything works, you will understand every single line of what I've said here. So as usual, I'm going to add the resource for all this. I'm going to add them to the description or probably the comments below. So if you have any question after this, you can ask me. So we look through this together. If necessary, I might even have to make a video for you to explain further. So that is it for day 42, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.